There are moments in life when your heart beats fast with worry, when the future feels like a puzzle missing half its pieces, and when you feel pressure to make everything happen in your own strength. But in those moments, heaven whispers a simple message: relax. What is meant for you will happen. Not because of your effort alone, but because of God's sovereign hand working behind the scenes. Every destiny God has crafted unfolds at the right time, not a minute earlier and not a second later. When you try to force what only God can release, you end up carrying a weight your spirit was never designed to hold. Anxiety exhausts you, but surrender empowers you. Fear drains you, but trust fills you with supernatural peace. God is not asking you to figure everything out. He is asking you to rest in the truth that He already has. Open your heart and notice how many times God has carried you without you even realizing it. Think about the doors that opened when you had no qualifications. Think about the storms that ended without your intervention. Think about the troubles that could have crushed you, but God preserved you. These are not coincidences. These are reminders that the same God who brought you this far will not abandon your future. When you relax in His presence, you create room for miracles. When your spirit becomes still, His voice becomes clearer. You begin to understand that delays are not denials. They are divine preparations. Closed doors are not punishments. They are protections. What you thought you lost was never part of your destiny, and what is truly yours will come with peace, not pressure, confirmation, not confusion, grace, not grinding. Sometimes God slows you down because He knows the blessing you are asking for requires a stronger, wiser, more prepared version of you. You may feel like nothing is moving, but in the invisible realm, everything is aligning. Heaven works silently but powerfully. And when the time comes, what belongs to you will locate you with such force and clarity that you will wonder why you ever worried. Your job is not to manipulate outcomes. Your job is to stay faithful. Keep praying, keep believing, keep obeying the gentle nudges of the Spirit. Trust the process even when it feels uncomfortable. The season that seems silent may be the very season God is constructing the breakthrough you have been waiting for. He has not forgotten you. He has not overlooked you. You are in the palm of His hand, and nothing meant for you can pass you by. Breathe, relax, release the fear of missing out, release the anxiety of timing, release the urge to compare your journey with someone else's. God's plans for you are individualized, intentional, and unstoppable. What is written for your life cannot be erased by people, circumstances, or even your past mistakes. Grace rewrites stories, restores years, and realigns destinies. So walk with confidence, rest with assurance. Move forward with a calm spirit, knowing that your story is unfolding exactly as God has willed it. When the moment comes, it will come with a divine ease that proves it was orchestrated by heaven. Until then, keep your heart still, your mind clear, and your faith strong. Because God is saying to you today, relax. What is meant for you will happen. And when it happens, it will be beautiful, timely, and undeniably divine. God's timing is one of the greatest mysteries of the spiritual life, yet one of the most powerful truths a believer can ever embrace. When you understand that God is never late, your soul begins to rest in a deeper rhythm, a rhythm of faith, trust, and divine alignment. There is a reason why some prayers are answered instantly, while others seem to linger for months or even years. There is a reason why doors open in one season and remain firmly shut in another. It is because God is not governed by earthly calendars, emotions, or pressure. He works according to His perfect wisdom and eternal perspective. And when He orchestrates the timing of your life, He aligns events, people, and circumstances in ways you could never manufacture on your own. There are seasons when you might feel as though life is moving slower than you hoped. You may watch others progress, succeed, and soar, while you remain in a season of waiting. But what you must understand is that delay in God's kingdom is not a sign of denial. It is often a sign of preparation. God does not withhold to punish. He withholds to perfect. He withholds until the blessing will not just touch your life temporarily, but elevate your life permanently. When you feel like you're falling behind, heaven sees you as being perfectly in place. When you feel like you're waiting too long, heaven sees you as being processed for greatness. God does not rush what he intends to last. Everything he has ordained for you carries a divine timestamp, an appointment that cannot be altered by the enemy, by circumstances, or by human decisions. What is meant for you cannot be sabotaged because it is protected by God's sovereignty. There is no opposition strong enough to block what God has already declared. There is no delay long enough to cancel what heaven has scheduled. There is no mistake disastrous enough to erase what God has written. You are not powerful enough to ruin God's plan, and the enemy is not powerful enough to steal it. Sometimes God slows things down to keep you aligned with his bigger purpose. If he allowed everything you prayed for to happen instantly, you might settle for blessings that are too small, people who are not meant to stay, or paths that are beneath your calling. God's timing is not just about what you receive, but about who you become in the process. He strengthens your faith, deepens your character, expands your capacity, and sharpens your vision. You start to realize that the waiting seasons are not wasted, they are sacred classrooms where God prepares you for responsibilities, territories, and opportunities that require maturity, stability, and spiritual depth. When God finally releases what he has promised, it comes with a supernatural ease. You won't have to force it, manipulate it, beg for it, or chase it. You won't have to compromise yourself to keep it. What is ordained for you flows into your life with grace and clarity. It arrives in such perfect alignment that you will look back and understand why God made you wait. Every delay becomes meaningful. Every setback becomes a setup. Every closed door becomes evidence of God's protection. And when his timing reveals itself, everything will make sense. The tears, the questions, the long nights of prayer, the seasons of uncertainty, all of it becomes part of a beautifully orchestrated story that reflects God's wisdom, not your struggle. His timing is never late because he sees what you cannot see. He knows what you do not know. He is working all things together in ways far beyond your human understanding. You may not feel it daily, but heaven is moving on your behalf. What God has ordained for you is on the way, right on schedule, and nothing can delay, deny, or destroy what he has set in motion for your life. Divine rest is not laziness, nor is it passivity. It is a spiritual posture where you allow God to take his rightful place in your life as the one who carries the weight of your destiny. Many people confuse movement with progress and effort with breakthrough. They believe the louder they shout, the harder they push, and the more they worry, the faster things will come together. But in the kingdom of God, rest is often the doorway to results. There is a power that only reveals itself when your soul becomes still enough to hear God and trust him deeply. When you stop striving in fear, you create room for God to show his sovereignty. Fear-driven work is exhausting because it is rooted in the belief that everything depends on you. But faith-driven rest is liberating because it is rooted in the truth that everything depends on God. He does not need your stress to move. He does not require your anxiety to perform miracles. He only asks for your trust. Divine rest is a declaration to heaven and to your own heart that God is in control, and you are willing to step aside so he can do what you cannot. There are battles God never intended for you to fight and burdens he never asked you to carry. But when you insist on handling life in your own strength, you block the very intervention you are praying for. Many times, God waits for you to release what is heavy so he can step in with what is holy. You cannot receive divine answers while clinging tightly to human solutions. You cannot see God move when your hands are full of worry. Rest empties your hands and opens your spirit to receive what God has already prepared. In moments of divine rest, your spirit becomes aligned with heaven's pace. You begin to understand that rushing ahead of God leads to unnecessary battles and unexpected detours. There is a peace that covers you when you choose to slow down and trust. You start to see that the blessing you are chasing cannot be earned through panic. It is received through surrender. God moves freely in the lives of those who trust His timing more than their timelines and His wisdom more than their fears. Divine rest also sharpens your spiritual clarity. When you are anxious, your vision becomes blurred. You misinterpret signs, misunderstand opportunities, and sometimes even attach yourself to something God never intended for you. But when your heart is still, God's voice becomes unmistakable. He begins to guide your steps with precision. You hear Him say, "Go here." You feel Him whisper, "Not yet." You sense Him directing you, "This is the way." Anxiety creates noise, but rest creates revelation. This kind of rest is not a withdrawal from responsibility, it is an elevation into spiritual alignment. You still work, but you no longer worry. You still dream, but you no longer doubt. You still plan, but you no longer panic. You move with purpose, but without pressure. You take steps of faith, but without fear chasing you. You become led by the Spirit, rather than driven by stress. There is a divine rhythm God wants your life to follow. A rhythm where your work is energized by grace, your decisions guided by peace, and your journey sustained by promise, not pressure. When you embrace this rhythm, you begin to see supernatural results. Doors open without force. Favor finds you without striving. Breakthroughs come with ease instead of exhaustion. What once felt stuck suddenly moves. What once seemed impossible becomes attainable because God steps into the space your rest created. When you rest in God, you are not stepping back, you are stepping higher. You shift from human effort to divine partnership. You move from battling alone to walking with heaven's strength. And in that place of sacred rest, God does what only He can do. He turns the natural into supernatural, the delayed into on time, and the ordinary into miraculous. Faith is never proven in moments of comfort. It is proven in the moments when nothing around you makes sense, yet you still choose to trust. Faith is not simply believing that God can do something. It is surrendering to the truth that He will do it in His way, at His time, and for your ultimate good. Many people say they have faith, but what they truly have is conditional trust. They trust God as long as life fits their expectations, as long as doors open quickly, and as long as prayers are answered immediately. But real faith begins where human understanding ends. It requires letting go of the need to control outcomes and releasing the urge to predict how the future must unfold. When you surrender instead of stressing, something powerful happens within you. You stop wrestling with the plan, and you begin to rest in the planner. Stop arguing with the process, and you start embracing the purpose behind it. Faith teaches you that you do not need to have all the answers because you are connected to the one who holds every answer. Stress is born from the belief that you must figure everything out. Surrender is born from the belief that God already has. Think of how much energy is wasted on trying to mentally solve what only God can resolve. The more you try to force life to obey your timing, the more frustrated you become. The more you try to fix things that are beyond your control, the more discouraged you feel. Faith frees you from that cycle. It invites you into a relationship where you lean on God's strength instead of your own, where you exchange anxiety for assurance, and where you begin to walk in a peace that defies the chaos around you. Surrender is not weakness. It is spiritual intelligence. It is the recognition that the Creator sees what you cannot see, knows what you do not know, and is working in realms beyond your reach. When you cling to your own plans, you limit your life to human possibilities. When you surrender to God's plan, you open the door to divine possibilities. You begin to witness things align in ways you never imagined. You start experiencing breakthroughs that no amount of worry could have produced. Surrender positions you for miracles. Faith also transforms the way you perceive your challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs of abandonment, you begin to recognize them as intentional stages of your growth. God sometimes allows pressure to shape your character, not to break your spirit, but to strengthen it. You may feel stretched, but you're being prepared. You may feel delayed, but you're being developed. Faith allows you to trust that every trial is connected to a greater purpose that will only make sense in hindsight. When you choose surrender over stress, your spiritual sensitivity heightens. You start to recognize God's guidance in subtle ways. You sense when He is redirecting you. You notice when He is protecting you. You understand when He is pruning you for something greater. Stress blinds you to these signs. Surrender helps you see them clearly. Faith sharpens your awareness of God's presence, working quietly but powerfully on your behalf. This posture of surrender also frees your heart from the fear of losing what was never meant for you. Many people cling to situations, relationships, or opportunities because of fear, not faith. But what is meant for you will stay, and what is not meant for you will leave, no matter how tightly you hold on. Faith empowers you to release with peace, knowing that God removes what cannot bless your future and preserves what is essential to your destiny. The beauty of faith-driven surrender is that it leads to a life without regrets. You can walk forward with confidence, knowing that you followed God's leading rather than your own panic. You can rest, knowing that what is destined for you cannot slip through your fingers. You can live boldly, knowing that heaven backs every step you take in faith. Stress fights for control, but faith gives control back to God. And when God is in control, everything flows in divine order. What is meant for you carries a divine seal that no person, no mistake, no delay, and no opposition can erase. When God ordains something for your life, whether it is a calling, a relationship, an opportunity, or a breakthrough, it becomes protected by heaven's authority. This means it cannot be stolen, manipulated, or redirected by human hands. You may encounter resistance, you may face setbacks, and you may walk through seasons of uncertainty, but none of these can override what God has decreed. Heaven's will is stronger than earthly obstacles. God's promise is greater than any enemy's plan. What is meant for you is safeguarded by divine sovereignty, and nothing on earth can cancel what has already been established in heaven. There are moments when you might feel threatened by circumstances that seem larger than you, or by people who appear to have influence over your future. You may feel intimidated by timelines, discouraged by delays, or anxious about missed opportunities. But the truth is this: no one has the power to block what God has reserved for your life. People may have opinions, but they cannot alter divine intention. They may speak against you, but they cannot override God's endorsement. They may try to push you aside, but they cannot occupy what was designed with your name on it. Destiny is not a competition, and purpose is not a race. God does not assign blessings based on human approval. He assigns them based on divine purpose. Sometimes God allows challenges not to threaten your destiny, but to reveal how secure it truly is. You may face situations that test your faith, environments that feel unstable, or seasons where nothing seems to move. This is not because your destiny is uncertain, but because God is preparing you to see that your future rests in His hands, not in the world's systems. He allows you to experience pressure so that you will learn to stand firm, trusting that what He has promised cannot be shaken. Your destiny is anchored in eternal truth, not temporary circumstances. Even when things seem to fall apart, what is meant for you remains untouched. You may lose opportunities and think they were supposed to be yours. You may watch relationships end and assume you missed your moment. You may see plans collapse and believe your future has been derailed. But often, God uses these endings to redirect you into something far better, far safer, and far more aligned with your calling. What leaves your life was never equipped to stay. What stays or returns is part of the divine design. What is meant for you will feel like peace, alignment, and inner confirmation, not confusion, chaos, or constant struggle. God does not allow anything that belongs to you to be permanently taken away. Even if someone tries to rise against you, or circumstances appear to push you out of position, God has ways of restoring, replacing, and elevating you beyond what anyone expected. If something is meant for you, it will return. If it is essential to your purpose, God will preserve it. If it is tied to your assignment, God will protect it until the appointed moment. This is why you do not need to live with fear, anxiety, or insecurity. Heaven is guarding your destiny more carefully than you guard your own heart. This truth becomes even more powerful when you recognize that God often hides what is meant for you until you are ready for it. Just because you do not see progress does not mean nothing is happening. God may be shielding certain blessings until your character, maturity, and spiritual strength match the weight of what He wants to give you. He may be delaying exposure so that no enemy can sabotage what is coming. He may be closing certain doors now so that the right one opens with undeniable clarity later. When you fully trust that what is meant for you is protected by heaven, your spirit begins to relax. You stop fighting battles that are already won. You stop competing for what is already yours. You stop stressing over outcomes God has already secured. You begin to walk differently, with confidence, calmness, and spiritual authority. You understand that your destiny cannot be stolen, your purpose cannot be replaced, and your blessings cannot be intercepted. What is meant for you will always find you because God Himself is guiding it toward your life with unfailing precision. When your soul learns how to rest in God, everything about your life begins to shift. There is a strength that rises within you that does not come from effort, striving, or human willpower. It comes from divine stillness. This kind of rest is not simply taking a break from life. It is a spiritual discipline, a holy posture, a way of positioning your heart so you can hear God more clearly, move more wisely, and live more powerfully. When you relax in God, you are not stepping back. You are stepping into alignment with His presence, His voice, and His plans. Many people think rest is optional, but spiritual rest is essential for clarity, direction, and inner stability. When your mind is overwhelmed, your spirit becomes clouded. When your emotions are anxious, your discernment becomes blurred. When you are constantly rushing, you cannot hear the gentle whispers of heaven guiding your steps. But when you choose to rest, breathe, and wait in His presence, your spirit is recentered. Your perspective is corrected. Your heart becomes anchored. You begin to move from a place of spiritual confidence rather than emotional reaction. God speaks the loudest to the hearts that are the quietest. When you slow down and allow your soul to settle, you become more sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit. You begin to notice divine nudges, subtle warnings, and quiet affirmations that you might have missed in the noise of busyness. What once felt confusing begins to make sense. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Rest creates room for revelation. Relaxation in God does not mean inactivity. It means carrying a peace that empowers you to act wisely. You still pursue your goals, but you are not consumed by fear. You still make decisions, but they are guided by the Spirit, not by pressure. You still move forward, but with calmness and intentionality. The rest God gives is not a pause. It is fuel. It is strength. It is clarity in motion. People who live from a place of divine rest make better decisions because they are not driven by panic. They walk in wisdom because their spirit is steady. This rest also protects you from burnout and spiritual exhaustion. You were not created to carry the whole weight of your destiny. God never asked you to handle everything alone. He invited you into partnership, not perfection. When you try to do life in your own strength, you drain yourself emotionally, physically, and spiritually. But when you rest in Him, He replenishes what life drains. He renews your mind, lifts your spirit, and strengthens your inner being. You begin to walk with energy that does not come from caffeine, motivation, or adrenaline. It comes from the divine breath of God sustaining you. Relaxation in God also builds your faith. When you choose peace over panic, you demonstrate to heaven that you trust the one who holds your future. You begin to witness how situations resolve without your intervention. You see how God provides without your stress. You experience breakthroughs that come not through striving but through surrender. Every time God moves while you rest, your faith grows stronger. You realize, I don't have to force anything. What is meant for me will come. What is ordained for me will manifest. What is promised to me will unfold. Rest is also a weapon. While fear drains strength, rest multiplies it. While stress clouds judgment, rest sharpens discernment. While anxiety weakens resolve, rest fortifies the spirit. When you carry a rested heart, The enemy cannot use fear to manipulate you, circumstances cannot shake you, and delays cannot discourage you. A rested spirit is a powerful spirit. Most importantly, rest opens your life to God's supernatural touch. When you release control, God takes over. When you stop worrying, He starts working. When you step back, He steps in. Rest invites miracles. It creates space for divine intervention. It positions you to receive more than you could ever achieve on your own. So when God says relax, He is not telling you to be passive. He is inviting you to be powerful in a new way. He is teaching you to operate not from pressure, but from presence, not from striving, but from surrender, not from fear, but from faith. And in that sacred rest, you discover a truth that brings peace to every part of your being. What is meant for you will happen, and nothing can stop what God has already prepared for your life. Thank you for giving your time, your heart, and your attention to this message today. I honor the faith within you, the hunger for growth inside you, and the courage it takes to keep moving forward even when life feels heavy. May every word you've heard settle deeply into your spirit and remind you that you are never alone, never forgotten, and never without God's grace guiding your steps. As you leave this moment, may peace follow you, may strength rise in you, and may clarity walk beside you. You are stepping into a new level of trust, a deeper rest, and a greater assurance that what God has planned for you cannot be missed. Thank you once again for being here. God bless you richly, and may His presence continue to lead you into everything He has destined for your life. Goodbye for now.